Tonight we're here in the rock room with part of Off With Their Heads. Is it half of Off With Their Heads?
It is. This is one half.
One half of Off With Their Heads. So part of this is an audio podcast, so if you could just say your name and what you play in the band.
My name is Ryan. I play guitar and basically do everything. And you are...
My name's John. I play guitar and I basically do everything else.
Look at that. So you got the whole band, actually.
Yeah, no one else does anything.
What do the other two guys do?
Nothing.
Nothing.
They live elsewhere and have happy, fulfilling lives, I'm sure.
Yeah. I think they're doing well.
We were talking a minute ago about a shoey, and I wanted to get that out here.
Okay.
Tell me about the shoey. Where did this originate?
We did a tour in Australia with this party band called the Bennies. They told us that we had 2 shows in Tasmania, which is south of Melbourne. You have to fly there. And they said, yeah, the kids there drink out of shoes. Like, it's a party thing. Like, if you just hand a shoe, they'll do it. So, of course, I get on stage and, halfway through? I'd say about half.
Half, 3/4.
I felt like I did my due diligence of playing music, and it was like, all right, who's going to drink out of one of my awful shoes? Which, again, you don't want to do that. And this kid just, volunteered, came up and was like, give it to me. And the look on, what was the look? Yeah, it was about like that. And I think that he might not be with us anymore.
Yeah, it's distinctly possible.
He
was pretty exuberant about it. He drank right out of it.
Did you ever follow up with the kid that did the shoey?
I did not. I think I would catch dysentery through email. That's how strong it would be in him, yes.
If you're out there and you're the guy that did the shoey,
please write in.
Yeah. Let us know you're still alive.
Yeah.
Maybe you can get on Anxious and Angry. So I'm going to steer it back to music. I feel like we should talk about your music, at least for
a second.
2 or 3 minutes.
It's definitely the least interesting part about us, but yes.
Sure.
But I'm curious what sparked the desire to do the acoustic thing. I know you have an acoustic record coming out.
We do. So we take about 5 years between every record because we toured so much. Then I had a little bit of a breakdown and we stopped touring and I just focused on things other than music. So to get my kind of gears going again, I was just like, well, I want to try and record these stripped down a little bit. So I have a friend in Minneapolis who was just like, yeah, come up. He's an engineer, and we did it at his work. And I wasn't planning on making a record, but just doing a couple songs. And then he sent them to me, and he said, this is something you might want to actually pursue because it's really good. And I was like, there's no way this is good. It's like, I don't think anything I've ever done has been good. But I listened to it and I remember driving around, just listening to these 3 songs. And I was like, wow, they did it. It gets across what the lyrics are in a way different way than the full band thing does. So we went back up there and I called him and I was like, hey, you want to play on this record? Because he's never played on an Off With Their Heads record before. You're probably our 24th member. I'm not even exaggerating.
No, that might be low.
So we went up and we did it, and people are really, really loving it, and it's kind of cool to hear that because I, again, assume everybody hates everything that I do, and it turns out that they don't. So.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like there are thousands of people that like what you do.
Yeah, but if there's one thumbs down on YouTube, I hide in a cave for 3 days.
Yeah, we had in the early days. We're still in the early days of the rock room, but. On our Facebook page, some guy took the time out. We first post video, he comments on it. It's like, lazy band, lazy genre, this sucks.
Sorry. And then, but that's so funny because that's so awesome of how dumb that is.
So why have you had 24 members?
Because I wanted to tour. That's all I ever wanted to do. From when I was able to play a guitar. I graduated early, got a job so I could buy a van, and everyone bailed, of course. You're young, and I made it. That's why Off With Their Heads is just me and now these guys, because these guys have stuck with for so long. It's beyond that now, but until that happened, it was just you're either on board or you're not. it sounds a lot like you and the other band that you were in for a little bit. You had other things in your life that you wanted to do, and that's fine. Yep. And I make sure everyone knows that that's fine.
Yep.
But I have to do this. So that's why we went through so many people. And then, like, later on, it just got to the point of, like, I got so salty from living in a van that I kind of became hard to be around. We drug him. Ugh, man. What do they call that in the Old West when they drag you by your feet behind a horse? I felt like that's what we did to you emotionally.
Is there a name for that? It just sounds awful.
Yeah. Well,
it was kind of definitely
we John'd you.
An emotional gauntlet, I would say. For about 2 years. I felt like I was Jason
about 2 years.
Newsted joining Metallica. I still feel like Jason Newsted joining Metallica.
Oh, buddy.
I want to ask one serious question because we ask a lot of bands this, but I think I'd love to get your take on it since you've been around a long time, to see kind of the financial shift of maybe 15 years ago, 10, 15 years ago, what it was like to try to make a living as an artist versus what you have to do right now today.
It's definitely different. I mean, we missed what a lot of my friends in bands like from the 90s, like
the golden age.
Yeah, all those guys that had like the present company included of like, you had like a major label deal in the 90s where like you got a little, even if you weren't successful, they were like throwing money, and then like you could, at least for a while, probably, I don't know, like that's more, you would know more about that than me. I'm sure you're not retired.
No. I'm not retired.
Like I know that you don't get you didn't get a boatload of cash, but definitely more than you would nowadays, because
definitely
it's just a different thing. But like, we missed that and came in kind of right when everyone was freaking out about what was it, Napster
yeah,
and that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And
LimeWire.
so for me, we were always just like, we never had any money. So the first like 3-4 years of us touring, we would go out, and if we got like $100 for a show, we were partying. Like, we were going out to eat and like
Totally. That night.
Yeah, absolutely. That was our whole thing. So it was learning to live that way, and like kind of $5-10 a day has really taught me a lot about making. I mean, I still think like a $10 an hour job, like back in that time, was like you could do that. It turns out you can't really anymore, but like I still live like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of interesting, but you have to work a lot harder, and you have to be a little bit more in control of your own shit. Like how I have my store, and I was like, well, I'm well ingrained into this community of musicians. I can hook them up with cheap merchandise and still be able to do the things that I do. You know what I mean? So thinking a few steps ahead has really helped me. How's working at that bar been going?
It's awful. I don't recommend having an actual job if you can avoid it. It's terrible.
Yeah, I don't know.
Super terrible.
I think that the only way to really, really do well being a musician is you got to gamble on yourself, and you got to really, really want to do it. And if you can do that and be realistic about it, it's possible. I mean, I've said many times that like what I want to do is I want to be a musician, whether I make money or not. So like, I'm doing it. It turns out everything I've ever wanted and dreamed of is happening, and it's not what I thought it would be when I was a kid, but it's better than I could have ever imagined. So that's awesome.
You mentioned you have your printing business with it. It's Fourth Shift Printing. It's always a tongue twister to say. He prints our Live from the Rock Room merch and several other bands' merch, and it is a great deal.
Probably
So if you
made a
need
shirt,
merch, Fourth Shift Printing. Got to get that plug in.
I do. I live in that little printing cave.
And you're fast. Like, I'll email you, and then like 4 days later, like, oh, there's the shirts.
Yep. Hey,
Pretty badass.
got to do it.
You mentioned about your podcast through doing 100 some odd episodes. Because of that, you're not an asshole anymore. So was your podcast your not become an asshole like therapy?
Well, after I had a little bit of a problem on on one of the last tours, that was years ago. I guess I can't say that, but I went to see Lane from Dillinger 4 is a psychologist who owns like multiple practices. Actually, he doesn't even take patients. He writes books to teach other psychologists and goes around and does like speaking engagements. So like he's on that level. But I called him up and I was like, man, I need some help. Like I don't know who else to ask. And he called me back on Christmas Day and was like, hey buddy, so yeah, we can get you in. Do you have any money? And I was like, not really. He's like, don't worry about it. So I met with a guy and just started working through my stuff, and I realized like, whoa, this is great. I'd leave those places or leave the place like feeling not good, but like slightly relieved. So I decided that maybe doing that with my friends to get people to realize that like if you just vent a little bit, it helps. So I started that podcast specifically to do that and to have people write in with these problems too. And it worked. And like, it wasn't like a master plan or anything. It was just like, wow, I can't believe how well received it was and how people are so willing to talk about their own problems. And it turns out if I don't do one for a couple of weeks, I start to go crazy again. And it's just because if you sit in a room and talk to yourself or to someone else for an hour every week, it helps. So I think that's just part of being a human is like you can't let it fester in there for too long. And that's what I've learned. So I'm joking when I say I'm not an asshole anymore, but like I've learned to control things a little bit better and to when those things hit, how to deal with them as opposed to, knocking stuff over and being like, nah. It's like the mildest way I've ever talked about mental illness.
Yeah. Having a bad day. I hate Mondays.
Yeah.
The podcast is Anxious and Angry. I suggest listening to it. It's really good. I started with the Mikey Erg episode, which was great. I don't know what episode number that is. It's like 18, or is it later than that? I don't know.
Oh man, that was an old one.
It may be later than that, but that's where I started. That was a great one.
He's a great dude.
Yeah.
That guy. And he was also kicked out of our band because he's a psycho. No, we've talked about this. He's one, I consider that guy one of my best friends, but like he had so many problems that like he's now like dealt with more. And he said a lot of it has to do with just like actually taking charge of stuff. And he's looking better. He's happy. He's got his band going now. And like, I don't know. Yeah, it's great. It's good to see when your friends like come out of something bad, So, but yeah. Kicking Mikey out of the band. I didn't do it. That's the only time I didn't do it. It was our bass player, Robbie. And everyone was like, if you're going to do that, please don't let me be there. So we're all sitting in a room. And Robbie just shuts the TV off and sits down. It's silence. Like, fuck, he's going to do this right now. I bought Mikey a vodka tonic, and it was all good.
That same evening?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
That stuff is
It's
brutal.
weird. It's hard.
Yeah.
It sucks, but like it has to be done. Like right away.
Can't let it fester. Well, I've got just one more question to wrap it up. We ask everybody this question. In one word, describe your rock room experience.
Unexpectedly. Huh?
You said in one word. So unexpected.
Oh, in one word.
One word.
So unexpectedly.
I feel like I did it.
In adverb.
I was going to talk about the cheese.
Oh.
It's amazing.
If this were the Broke Downs and stuff, I would be
Queso-rific?
holding that in the middle like he did with the watermelon.
Oh
for the
my
Broke
God.
Downs interview. Yeah, sure, I have a plate of watermelon.
Are you?
John, you take this one, John. I've been doing this whole thing.
Rad.
What's rad?
Rad.
Rad.
I mean, that works. Unexpectedly, I said, and to combine.
Rad.
But not that I didn't think it wouldn't be, but
Unexpectedly rad.
you have to keep in mind that everything that he and I do were a second away from bailing on.
Oh yeah.
We were at the grocery store getting
100%.
beer, and I was just like, let's just not do this. And by this, I mean the acoustic thing, like touring. Like I was just like, let's stop.
I'm literally 15 minutes from bailing on everything in my life. Everything.
So
Family engagements, dates, dinners, dentist appointments, everything. Everything.
So when I said
wanted to stay
unexpectedly,
home.
that makes more sense.
Unexpectedly, you didn't bail. And for that, we thank you very much.
Hey, all right.
Unveiled.
Unveiled.
Unveiled. Unproud. Unveiled.
It's been awesome. Thank you, guys.
Oh, thank you.
Thank
Thanks for
you.
having us.